All right, guys. Well, here we are. It's like 4 in the morning now, like 4:30 in the morning. I don't know what. I've been like doing nothing. I don't know. Just like I'm sad, and it's been hard just to like muster up the fucking energy to do a video. Now, I generally don't put any thought or planning into videos because why would I? I mean, I'm basically just going back and telling you about things that have happened to me. Occasionally I go off on like some sort of comedic, direction. That's hilarious. Sometimes I go on little rants, but for the most part, I'm just telling you a linear story from point A to point B. I know there's somebody that's like, oh my God, he's going to talk about his process again. This fast. I hope he timestamps. This is just bullshit. The Origin series is different. It's an experimental series because there is a focus on backstory. And I'm trying it out, and it seems to be positive feedback. Now, I saw on the last video, I got a bunch of YouTube comments from Patreon people because this is an unlisted video. You can only access it on Patreon. Now, I told you guys I'd start interacting more with Patreon, and that's the perfect place to do it. And I will get to that. I absolutely promise. I know that my word's poo-poo, but but I do promise that I will start responding to comments and start interacting more. I should. I'm just coming out of my little gopher hole right now. Coming up and just like whatever, I gotta be more. I have to get thicker skin so that I can survive a full-blown sex riot. I'm like, you can't penetrate me. Sorry, I don't know. See how like flat-toned I've become? Because I'm sad. I am. But let's try to get into the story. Like, fuck the introduction. I'm tired, so I figure if I just get straight into the story, maybe I can do a shorter video. Although I have something in my mind where I like have to do an hour. If I don't, I don't know. Maybe I have some slight OCD or something. But so I thought about this series because it's very complex. There's backstories that intersect eventually. And I'm like doing a story, and then I go into somebody else's story, and then I do their backstory, and then like how it all correlates with what's going on. And I had estimated maybe like 1 or 2 more videos. I think maybe I can get 3 out of it. It just depends, but there's important stuff we're going to go in on this one that takes place before the actual where we're at chronologically at this point, where I'm with Paya and Tiny. I have a plan where I'm going to go steal whatever is in Maddie's parents' house. I have no idea what we're going to find there. It's going to be like human fucking hearts and like coolers full of ice cubes. Well, man, we can't get shit. This is... Do you know where we can sell body parts? Paya's like, hey, dog. I know where we can sell some cock, fool. Come on, Paya. I fucking warned you, man. Don't be saying weird shit like that. So let me get into this. I have an idea of where I'm going, and hopefully it works out. It's like pulling it off at the end is the really challenging part because there's a lot of different layers to this story. All right, let's get into it. So, I had talked about Maddie pretty explicitly throughout the course of the storyline, and he's a reoccurring character in my life. I mean, he was one of my most anti-Semitic Jewish friends I've ever met, the only one, actually. We used to do school together in high school, then he got sent away, came back a different person, he was much more mature. But him and I have always gone in and out of being on good terms and then being on bad terms. Right now we're on bad terms. Although he's still friends with Karina on Facebook, and when she posts things about me, I see him comment, and he's being amicable. I think that he wants to get back together. His ex told me that, get back together. She's like my side chick. I'm like, come on, Maddie. I don't know. I mean, maybe we can try and we'll create some physical boundaries or some shit. We'll just chill. I don't know if I can do that, Ryan. Sometimes if we're being honest, I have the urge to be physical. All right, well, I guess we can't be homies then. We've had so many falling outs that it's hard to really remember what the one before I planned on jacking his parents was, you know? I mean, I look back, and there was a number of things. We got in a fist fight over a Blockbuster video. I left a used well, it wasn't mine. Kate, I love you so much, Poopa Daddy. Where should I put this tampon? He used to let me live in his Chevy Tahoe, and Kate took a bloody tampon out of her vagina and put it in his ashtray. She's like, this is so weird. I'll put an ashtray. This car is so uncomfortable, Poopa Daddy. And he ended up finding the bloody tampon, and he got mad about it. I mean, I don't blame him. So that's disgusting. Jesus. And I snitched Kate out quick. I was like, it was her. I don't even fucking use those things, bro. And that was one falling out the Blockbuster tape, etc., etc. And now, I told you my theory with him is that I think he's in love with Casey. I think that they may have had sex. And that would really bother me, even if I found that out now. Even though that whole ship has sailed a long time ago with her. But anyway. It was either that I'd left a rig in his kids' bath toys. There was another time shortly after that where we had made up, and I was married at that point. You are such a drug addict to that person. And we caught a CPS case because her and I were arguing, verbal argument. The neighbor called the police and said that I hit her. And then when they saw me, they're like, you look like the type. We're going to bother you. I was like, okay. And they couldn't, there was no domestic violence that was happening. They interviewed her kid, and he said no. He was like, no, my stepdad never hits my mom. He yells at her. He's mean, but he doesn't hit her. And so I didn't get charged, but what happened is CPS came, and they do that sometimes. They're like, weird, like you avoid consequences with the law, but then CPS comes and takes your kid, and that's a worse consequence than any legal consequence you can get. And I had called Maddie to be a character witness. I had like no friends at that point. I called people that I don't know. I was like, hey, my name's Ryan Leone. Let me tell you about this predicament I'm in. Hello? As soon as you say CPS, people generally are like, oh, this gregarious voice on the other end of the line, he's an abuser, you know? So anyway, that was one that we'd got in, and I can't remember exactly what the falling out was. I'm pretty sure it was because I left a rig, or he thought I left a rig in his kid's bathtub toys, but it's really this other girl, Marie, that we know. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. He had always had, when we were friends, we were friends, you know, from 13 to recently, you know, just when I had my breakdown, that was like the final straw with him. He did a lot of bad shit. I'm pretty sure he called my parole officer and is the reason that I got a warrant issued, you know. He told my parole officer that I was using meth and that I was a public safety risk factor or whatever. And I wasn't using meth, but whatever he had said to my PO persuaded him into issuing a warrant. I mean, at the time, I was like, you know who I am? Google me. Yeah, you Google me. It's not going to say anything about federal probation. No, it's going to say that I'm I'm Googleable. I was just saying a sort of, you know, random shit. Oh, I will sue you. I will sue you. And then you know what? I know that I'm not supposed to threaten you or anything, but I'll fucking kill you and people you know. Fools you grew up with, too. Oh, I can't believe I'm getting arrested. What the fuck? So, police brutality. I was just really going through it at the time, but I do think that he had called my PO, which is completely out of line, right? I don't know. He'll never admit that. But he was always this guy that was in love with girls that I dated. It was weird. He started dressing like me. He wore like contacts with my color eyes. I was like, wait a second, man. What's going on with the hazel? And he's like, nothing. I'm just feeling silly. And it was like an ongoing source of contention between us. So when I was 15, okay, so I grew up, I moved to Santa Barbara when I was 3. And my dad had started a company in the basement in Boston. He named it after me, Ryan Associates. For years, the 800 number was 1-800-666-RYAN. And I was like, pretty sure that that's going to freak people out that you're trying to do business with. And it's like some satanic like subtext to it. My dad was like, oh, come on. He just never, anything I say back in the day, my dad just thought I was an idiot for saying. His company started growing when we got to Santa Barbara, and we ended up moving into like, I think probably like a $500,000 house, which in other parts of the country, that's expensive in some places. In Santa Barbara, most houses are at least like 1.5 or 2 million. I mean, it's like that. It's a ridiculously wealthy town. And the first place that we lived at was in a very middle-class suburban neighborhood. And in the backyard, there was this like, I don't know, drain, you know, this like, it's like shit, it's like this concrete little channel for rainwater. And you could access it from your backyard. It connected all the backyards in the neighborhood. And I just started like exploring it one day. Incidentally, the day that I had done this, I was probably 7 or 8 years old. And I remember looking through my dad's like magazine. He had like old like Life magazines, Sports Illustrated, Rolling Stone. He collected like a lot of old magazines. I don't know. He's like a pack rat. Yeah, a pack rat like that. God, you see, I'm like, it's difficult for me to like be focused right now. But I remember finding a Playboy, and I can remember the cover like I saw it yesterday. It was an ape hugging a naked girl. And I remember I was like, what the fuck is this? It said Playboy on it. And I opened it and I saw a vagina. It made me emotional. I like gasped. Felt like I was listening to like gospel music or something. I was like, oh my God, what is that? That's fucking cool. And I was like just hooked right there and then. I was like down. I was like, man, I fucking love apes. No, I was just seeing beautiful women in Playboy. Being that age, I remember really, it like had an effect on me. And then I found my dad's porn collection, and then shit got weird after that. But before that, it was very innocent, softcore, and I had this Playboy. So the day that I stole it from my dad, and I went and I hid it in this alley, you know. And then what happens is, of course, it gets weathered. Pages come open. It gets like stained albino by the sun, and like you don't even see it. There's no face anymore. It's just a vagina. You can just barely see some red, maybe like a little like fuzz of pubic hair, and you're like, fuck. I'm still gonna keep this here just in case the color comes back, you know. And so that particular day, I'm going through the alley and I see these 2 kids. Little blonde girl and maybe a kid that's like 2 years older than her. They were, I think she was like 4. No, wait. Let's just say I was 7. She had to have been like 5 at the time. And then her brother was probably like a year younger than me. And it was these 2 kids, right? They saw me. I had like a fucking Playboy, like rolled up like a scroll and like tucked under my arm. they're like, hey, we were just all hanging out in this like back drainage canal or whatever the fuck it was. I was like, do you guys want to see a naked girl? And they're like, yeah. And I like, look at this. There's also apes, but look at the girls. And that was the first time they'd ever seen that either. And it just created this like very intense bond with us. I mean, like after that, it's all we talked. Apes and pussy. No, I'm just kidding. But we started like, you know, doing shit that kids do. I remember we had like, you know, little science chemistry sets, and we'd like make shit smoke and like, I don't know, weird shit that kids do, climb trees. And the girl was like more like a tomboy, and the guy was really cool. I just saw the guy 2-3 weeks ago when I was up in Santa Barbara, but they became really close friends of mine. The girl's name, we'll give her a fake name. Her name was Carmen. And the guy's name was Johnny, right? Carmen and Johnny. Now, I grew up with them from probably about the time I was 7 until the time I was 12, when we moved into a way, way bigger house in a way nicer area, and we kind of left that middle class life behind. I didn't understand what was going on at the time, but my dad really, there was a huge little wave of success for him. And so I lost contact with him. I mean, I didn't, you know, that was that. So when I get into high school, you know, I'm 16 years old now. Fast forward, I'm a sophomore in high school. I am incredibly bad on cocaine at this point. And I ended up going to what's called a YMCA blowout. Now, those were these like dances, you know, that like 6 different public schools would be invited to. And they'd like do shit where like they'd play the Macarena and we'd all like be in a line, like, hey, Macarena, you know, that shit. And I end up running into Carmen. Now, I hadn't seen her since I was 12. Now I'm 16, so it'd been 4 years. And you know, back in that time, that 4 years isn't like 4 years now. Back in that time period, the difference between a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old is pretty fucking staggering. I'm 16, and, you know, I'd started off in high school, and I would get good-looking girls a lot when I was a freshman. The older I got, the more I got into drugs, and the more chicks thought I had AIDS. Like, are you going to donate to the Ryan Leone Fund? They're like, why? He's trying to fight AIDS. I was like 16. I was like, what are you talking about? And I never even used the needle at that point, but people basically thought I was a junkie, right? And so what happened is the girls that I would get, which were like, you know, girls that I'd have to court and shit. I'd like have to like put their sweater on their shoulders and I'm like, yeah, God, I really care about you. And then like I'd be with my friends and like, yeah, fuck. Shit, bitch, she won't shut up. I'm trying to finger her and shit. I don't want to hear no talk. You know, yeah, that's right, Tommy. Fuck yeah. None of you guys get girls, but yeah, fuck them. Fuck women, yeah. And I didn't understand that at that time. Like, why, you know, and I was a piece of shit to chicks when I was that age. I was just really mean to them, and like, they were the butt end of my jokes, and like, I did it just to get high fives by dudes. I'm like, man, I'd way rather guys think I'm cool than gross girls. And so by the time I was 16, when I was full blown into my coke addiction, it's not like I wasn't getting women at that point, but the quality had gone down significantly. I'm like, Bobby, are you sure you're a woman? He's like, yeah. I come from a family of people. All right, let's finger. Ew. Your vagina stinks. He's like, yeah, it's my asshole, dog. But yeah, I'm a chick. I gotta go home, man. You know, shit like that. So, I'm at this blowout at the YMCA. Of course, I'm drunk. And I just went there because the girls that went to my school knew that I was a full-blown junkie at that point. I mean, just a cokehead, but I couldn't get into the quality ones. But if I ventured out and went to these like events that had different public schools, then I tended to have different luck. You know, like they didn't hear anything about me. I just looked like some guy. So I run into Carmen. Now she at that point is 14 and I'm 16. Stunning, right? She looked, if you remember what Kim Basinger looked like in the original Tim Burton Batman, Vicky Vale, the love interest in the movie. She looked like that, but she was like 14. And she saw me and she's like, Ryan, it's Carmen. I haven't seen you for 4 years. Remember, we used to always talk apes and pussies. Her friends are like, oh my God. I think Carmen's getting abducted right now. And I'm like, no, we're just talking. I gave her a hug and I couldn't believe how beautiful she was. I was tripping out on it. But I was like acting cool. Like, what do you do now? I was like, yeah, I just, beat up dudes. I hate girls, so I just, I take it out on men. I practice a lot, though. That, too. And me and her exchange phone numbers. Now, at the time, she's going to a junior high school. She's in 8th grade. I'm in 10th grade. And me and her start talking on the phone. She's still living at the same house that she lived at with her brother and her mom and dad, but her dad ended up passing away. He was always like, a lot older. And he died before anyone else's parents I know. So we started talking on the phone. And by this point, I started going to high school more. I'd already been sent to Idaho and Utah. I'd already come back. My parents basically said I could go back to public school with my friends, but I couldn't ditch like I used to. And I don't know if I ever told you, but at one point, back in that time, I don't know how it works now, but if you ditch school, you'd get an automated voice thing from the school, and it would be like, your son or daughter has missed 1 or more classes at Santa Barbara High School. Thank you. And it was this automated thing. And so what I had done is I went to the school secretary and I was like, hey, yeah, my parents changed their contact information and they just wanted me to give it to you so you can update it into the system. She's like, okay. And she updated it because I knew that that's how they had my parents' phone number. It's on the emergency contact list. It made sense to me. So I changed it to my cell phone. I had a cell phone. I had like the first Nokia with like Snake on it and shit. It was huge and bulky and corny. But at the time it was the shit, and not everybody had cell phones. I was like one of very few people I knew that even had them. Occasionally people would have them, but it's not like it is now. So, dude, oh my God, I'm so tired. I'm like forgetting what I'm talking about. So I started ditching school. At once I figured out, because that would always be the bust, I'd get home and my dad would be like, I'm like, what? Are you going to give me a Clockwork Orange on DVD again? You ditched school today? You may as well join the fucking Marines. Go die fighting for your country. You don't care about nothing anyway. I'm like, Dad, why do you talk like that when you're mad? It makes me take you not seriously. All right, I mean, you could tell me to try harder and I'll do it. Really? Okay, try harder. And then I wouldn't. And so eventually what had happened is my parents got called into the district attorney's office, because that's what they do. If your kid is like a fucking chronic truant like I was, eventually it gets turned over to the district attorney. It's a criminal charge against your parents. So I had to go with my mom and dad. My mom's like wearing a pantsuit. She looked like Hillary Clinton or something. My dad's wearing his like nicest stuff, and I'm wearing, who knows, but probably like shorts and a tank top or something. Back then I had my hair dyed like Eminem. I was just a little punk ass kid. And when I go to this meeting, it's the district attorney, it's a bunch of superintendents, it's all people from the district. And I started crying, and I'm sure I've told you this before, but just so you understand. I started crying, and I basically said that I'd been bullied, and there's people that were bullying me at school. That's why I don't show up. Because they told my parents, like, Mr. Leone has the most truancies of any human that's ever even breathed. Ever. My parents were like, oh my God. And so I started fake crying and said I was bullied. They excused every single one of my truancies. And, like, it was like Oscar level performance. Even my dad, like, knew I was full of shit, but he's like, man, credit where credit's due. They excused all of my absences, all of my truancies. So after that had happened, my dad basically made me go to school. It's like I didn't have an option anymore. My dad said that if I kept ditching school in sophomore year, because it was my second time going back to Santa Barbara High, if I ever got called back to the district attorneys like that, because it freaked my parents out. I mean, they were liable for it. He would take me out of that school and he'd send me to another place where women like cut themselves. But hey, I just cut, and I know I'm supposed to talk about it, so I'm just checking in and letting you know that I just did it again. Everybody starts like clapping. Yeah, me too. I cut too. It was really awful. Everything's awful. That's why I fucking cut stuff. Anyway, so I was making an effort to go to school, and I just reconnected with Carmen. Like, she looked just like Kim Basinger. Like, fucking identical to what she looked like in the first Batman. And she, for some reason, had a cell phone too. Like I said, they were very rare in that time. But she had one too. So I'd be in school, and I'd be texting with her, flirting with her. I was like, I'm just sitting here and I'm thinking about you naked, even though I've never seen it. But I'm imagining that you don't have a dick, and you look like you do, but without a dick. She's like, oh my God, you're so fucking romantic. Like I said, her dad had died prematurely. Her mom worked very long hours. She was an RN or something. I don't remember. So after school, she'd come home from junior high. I'd come home from high school, and we could go hang out at her mom's house. She had a pool table, and we'd listen to the radio. Like shit like Sugar Ray and 311 would come on, and it was just that kind of place. And so I start going over there quite a bit. And although we were flirting in nature, we didn't do anything for a while. Like, as soon as I got there, I mean, we were still kids at that point. So like, I'd be like talking a big old game. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if you saw Cruel Intentions, but they were talking about how they do oral sex with the alphabet. I'm letting you know I'm willing to do stuff like that, just to make you feel good, And then I'd get there and she'd be like, hey, I'd be like, oh, hey. And we'd be all nervous. So one day I'm over there at her, but I'm hanging out with her, and she has a boyfriend at the time, some guy that's like in 8th grade with her. And, she told me one day, we're just like at her house, and she's like, yeah, I lost my virginity to Randall. That was her boyfriend. I was like, really? I was like, does that mean that we can, do it? And I don't know why, but as soon as I said it, she just leans in and French kisses me. So this starts this thing where now I'm going over there, and we're just making out. Like, we'll talk about it. I'll be like, hey, it's good to see. Do you want to make out for like 40 or 50 minutes right now? All right, cool. Me too. And we had this thing where we wanted to kiss with our eyes open, because it was like considered like bad etiquette if you kissed with your, hold on. Oh, I took my sock off. Just blowing the room up. So we always kissed with our eyes open. Now, she had told me she lost her virginity to this guy, Randall, but sex wasn't a thing for us yet. It was just making out. That was it. We didn't even do anything beyond that. And so she lived probably an hour walk from my parents' house. And I start sneaking out of there. We get really into each other. We really like each other. And she ends up leaving her boyfriend to be with me. So now we're boyfriend and girlfriend. And I'm sneaking there in the middle of the night, every night. I'm like watching the sunset come up with her. And like walking back, I'm like doused in sweat. And I was like, what were you doing outside? I'm like, masturbating in nature. Because I sometimes when I'm inside, I don't know. I start just thinking like how bad things are for the environment. You know what I'm saying? You're the weirdest kid I have. I'm like, I'm the only kid you have. I felt bad for him because I would say some out there shit to him. So anyway, so one night I sneak out and I go there and we go to this park. We meet like somewhere halfway in the middle. We go to this park and we're making out. And I don't know. I guess I got some courage that night. And I start going to try, to do my thing. And she's like, wait, I don't want to do it on a park bench. I love you. And I really thought I loved her at the time too. And I was like, I fucking love you too. That doesn't mean we can't fuck on the park bench. What does that have to do with anything? She's like, come over tomorrow after school, like normal. It'll be special. I was like, oh, God damn it. All right, fine. So the next day I show up. Very awkward because we like know it's going to happen. She's like, hey. And it was like, it seemed like I was like hanging out with a different person. I don't know. Once we knew that was going to happen, just whatever like innocent chemistry we had just like totally went out the window. I was like having these internal like voices like, man, I bet you'd like anal. Oh, hey, you ready to do that special sex stuff? And we go into her bedroom. And we'd go in there a lot. We'd play Mario Kart and whatever. We'd only made out at this point. I'd never even fingered her. And she goes and lays on her bed. Takes off her clothes, right? Like she like lays down with her clothes on. She's wearing like a tube top and jeans. And by the way, she didn't look 14, she looked way older than that. And I didn't look 16. I looked probably like I was like 12 or something. I was like always one of those kids that looked younger than I actually was. And so she's laying in bed. She gets naked and she gives me this look. I'll never forget this look. She's like, is this what you want? I don't know why, but like something about it just fucking turned me on. I was like, I felt creepy, right? I was like, yep. She's like, take your pants off. I want to see your dick. It was like super awkward. I was like, wow, this is not the romance that I had envisioned. And so I do, and we start having sex. And, back in that time period, I was 16. I probably slept with, 10 girls by that point in my life. I mean, I was really sexually active as a teenager, much more so than pretty much, I think, anybody I knew. Some people had like long-term girlfriends or whatever, but, I don't know. Hold on. So I had experience, and back in that time period, it would be weird. Like, girls, like, wouldn't take off their shirt. They'd be all insecure. It was just like, it's an awkward time for people. And usually, girls would not really say anything. you know? And I think it was like that period where you're very self-conscious about what you're doing. You know, you're like thinking about it. You're like, okay, don't make noises. Don't make noises. I don't know if it's going to sound weird. Like if I grunt, I don't know. What if it sounds like I have asthma or some shit, and then she thinks it's like some sort of safety hazard? I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to hold my breath. Holy fuck, I feel like I'm going to faint. Fuck. So, and nowadays I'm ridiculous. I'm on some primal shit. I'm like, oh, I make like noises like I'm some pirate getting tortured on some like ornate ship or something. But the one thing that separated her from other girls is this look. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like this. Her eyes got all glassy. It looked like I was fucking a doll or something. It looked like I was fucking a dead person. She didn't move at all. Like, there were like times where I like checked her neck to see if there was some sort of knife slit or something. I didn't even know if she was alive anymore. And I swear, I couldn't, I was like, and I like took it out and just stopped. Got dressed. I was like, this was a mistake. This is going to ruin everything. And I like stormed out of there like some bitch, you know? Never had sex again. And what had happened is she was a real prize, right? She was like one of the, and this happens a lot in high school. You know, hot girl is basically like undiscovered by a group of like horny teenage wolf men. And then as soon as the girl gets introduced to the scene, everybody is just on it and everybody passes her around. And that's exactly what had happened. After that, we broke up. And I like told her, I was like, look, every time I think of you now, I think about like a dead trout on a line, because that's what you look like when we had intercourse. And it really freaks me out. I can't be with you anymore. So we broke up, and then my friends just started swooping her up, and she dated like, and then she turned into a whore. And then everyone would be like, dude, Carmen, dead fish. Am I right? Am I right? High five. I'm like, dude, it's a fucking person, bro. I'm just kidding. I don't care. You know, I was a scumbag by then. So she, you know, she ends up dating a bunch of dudes that I know. And Maddie was one of her best friends, platonic best friend. Now, she had told me, one of the problems too, that time that we had sex, is I was really having a hard time getting it up, because I looked at her and I felt like, you know, possibly she might not be alive anymore. And I just couldn't get a boner. So years later, I'm hanging out with her, Maddie's girlfriend, and me. It's like the four of us. And we're playing truth or dare, but like we didn't do anything at that time. We're older now, like 18, 19 years old. And Maddie's girlfriend was like, all right, truth. Carmen, have you ever slept with Ryan? And she's like, well, we tried once when we were like younger and he couldn't get it up. I was like, that's not true. You look like a fucking mime or something. I was over it. You look dead. Come on, don't spin this like I was some sort of like impotent fuck. And then I was like, all right, truth or dare, to Maddie. I was like, have you had sex with Carmen? And she puts him on blast, and she's like, he tried, but I was over it. He had a Jufro. No, she didn't say that, but yeah, she said that he had tried, and that she had turned him down. Now, this is what's interesting. It's light outside. This is what's interesting about that, is that he never told me that, you know? According to him, like, she was like one of his best friends, and like, I don't look at her like that, dog. But, you know, apparently he was like a low-key pervert that tried to fuck her. Because he tries to fuck his friend. He never tried that shit on me. And I was like, what about me? It's because I don't have abs? And so that was like one of the first red flags with him. Like I said, he was always a guy that was like trying to hook up with girls that I was with or like had hooked up with. I don't know. He had some weird thing like that. I don't know if it was like an insecurity or he felt competitive. But anyway, fast forward. And she ends up going into the military. She becomes a nurse in the military, and she moves away, and I hardly see her anymore. So I get out of prison in 2013. Now I'm 27 years old. She takes me out to dinner. We have a platonic friendship. Now, you know as well as I do that you can tell when there's sexual tension between someone. Sometimes it's awkward. Like if you're not down, but you have someone that is, and you know that it's there, but you don't want to do it, it can get weird. And when I went out to dinner with her, I could tell that she was into me that way. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, all right, well, it's been 14 years. Maybe she's like a dancing fish now when she fucks, not just a dead one. Maybe I'll try it again. And I was about to. We were about to give it another go. Like, we started like flirting again. We started considering being romantically involved. And then I met Casey, and that all went out the window. That was in 2013. Okay, so when I relapsed in 2015, this is where this gets very fucking interesting. I hung out with her probably like, I don't know, a couple times before this, and it was always like she'd come over and we'd binge watch Lost, or like, we'd watch Dexter together, like shit like that, right? 2015, my friend Maddie had been sober for years. He was like an AA guy. And one night, he calls me out of nowhere. Like, well, we're like I'm freshly relapsed. Remember, he like told my parents that I was using, and I think that was just some ploy to get Casey or whatever. And he calls me, he's like, hey bro, it's Maddie. I was like, yeah. This is like after he told on me. He's like, I need to come pick you up right now. I'm gonna need you to do something. I was like, okay. What? He's like, I can't tell you over the phone, bro. Oh no, I think my phone's tapped. I can hear static. Shh, you hear that? I'm like, I hear wind. Are you driving with the window down? He's like, yeah. Sounds like feds to me, man. And I was like, all right. He was acting weird. So he comes and he picks me up. I don't even remember where I was at the time. Like, I just remember being in his car. And we end up pulling up to this beach parking lot. And he's like, here, I brought flashlights. I was like, what are we doing? Dude, I lost an ounce of crystal meth in my car. Dude, I've relapsed. I relapsed and I'm tweaking right now real fucking bad. And I lost it, and I have split custody of my son, and we have to find it. I was like, okay. Look for it with flashlights, we can't find it. He ends up dropping me off back wherever the fuck, I don't even remember. I don't even remember. I don't remember where he picked me up or where he dropped me off. All I know is that he took me to the beach. We looked for meth in his car, and we couldn't find it. So around this time, Carmen and I reconnect, because when I was in rehab before that, I was really lonely. And that's how I get, like, if I'm in prison or rehab, I'll start like calling old flames, because I was going through a breakup and I was just trying to get that like emotional rebound shit. And so her and I start talking again, and it's getting kind of flirty, but not really. Like, she's always like, oh, I'm such a sister to you. I love being family. And I was like, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I don't think about nothing that won't be family oriented when thinking of you. So she ends up giving me a call just right after I get out of rehab. When he lost that meth, it was somewhere right before this point. And she's like, hey, I have tickets to a music festival in San Francisco. It's going to be at like one of the parks by the Golden Gate Bridge. all these bands were playing. Jane's Addiction, Suicidal Tendencies, Deftones, all these big ass bands. And she's like, I have an extra ticket if you want to go. I was like, absolutely. You know, at the time I was like homeless. I had nothing going for me. And she had VIP tickets to go to this concert or this festival. So she's living up in the Northern California at the time, but she's going to be in Santa Barbara. And she said that she would pick me up and take me to this festival. It was like a Friday when we were supposed to go. I get a call on a Thursday from Maddie. Bro, I found the methamphetamine, man. And because you helped me look, I'm going to get you high for free. Now, this is a guy that was like my sober buddy. We'd gone to AA meetings together, you know, probably 100 of them. It was very weird that he was relapsed, and he didn't tell anybody about it except for that time that he said that he lost the meth. So he's like, yeah, you're entitled to some of this crystal meth. So he comes over. Now I'm at my parents' house. He comes over to my parents' house. He has rigs, and he has like, you know, more than a half ounce of meth left. The next day, I'm going to this festival with Carmen. He's like, here, man, I'll give you a shot, bro. I was like, oh, yeah, you look like you're having a great time. Yeah, let me get one. I do this fat shot of meth, and we've talked about it before. It sends static electricity coursing up my fucking neck, making the back of my hairs tickle. And I cough and I cum in my pants a little bit. Oh! I was like, oh man, I'm high. Now he gave me a little bit. I don't know, he gave me probably a teener, which is like a half of an 8-ball. It's like 1.7, 0.5 grams, which is a lot when it comes to meth. You don't need much, especially if you're shooting it. So he ends up leaving, and I'm just beating off at my parents' house, just going hard. Room stinks, all that. She comes to pick me up the next day. Now, she doesn't know I'm on meth. I haven't slept for a day now. She comes to get me. Right before she got there, she told me she was on her way. I did a fat shot because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it around her once we were together. She picks me up, and she's like, has like a brand new Ford Explorer. She's just as beautiful as she was when I was a kid. She's like, hey, she kisses me on the cheek, and my dick just goes, and I look at her. She's no longer a human. She's a piece of meat with a hole, and I'm trying to find my way in. And that's how you think when you're on that nasty devil shit of crystal meth. We're driving. We kind of flirted a little bit, but not really. You know, like I said, she'd always call me her brother and all this shit. She's wearing like a plaid skirt, like a naughty schoolgirl skirt, and like some sort of like band t-shirt, like Guns N' Roses or something. And she's like, so how have you been? Da, 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 da. We haven't seen each other for a while. And I'm sitting there, and I just cannot stop staring at her legs. And like in my mind, it's like, fuck her. Fuck her. And I'm like, dude, you only talk to me when you want something, brain. Fuck you. Fuck you, I'm not falling for it. I just cannot stop staring at her. Now, we get a couple hours up north. She's like, are you looking at my legs? I keep seeing you stare. She's like, are you okay? You look like you're on drugs or something. I was like, no. I just wanted to know what your knees felt like, you know, by touch. Can I touch them? She's like, what the fuck? No, you weirdo. I was like, oh, yeah. Totally making it funny. I'm joking. It's a joke. Keep going. Get up to her place in Northern California. Now, this whole time, when we're making a pit stop, so I'm spending the night there, and then the next day we're going to this festival. We get there, and I'm like, hey, can I take a shower here? And she's like, yeah. Like, will you take one with me? I'll give you like $13 or something of equivalent value. She's like, shut up, weirdo. Yeah, go shower. So I shower. Of course, I beat off in the shower. I'm probably in there for like 2 hours. Now I get out, and in my mind, I'm thinking that I'm like, yeah, I've been throwing signals out. Line and sinker, man. She's for sure feeling it. And I thought that, I didn't know where I was sleeping or anything, so I thought she was gonna be like, yeah, I'm sleeping in my bed. Why do you have pants on? It's gross. Go pantless. We'll see what happens. Let's watch Weeds, And so when I get out of the shower, of course I'm such a creep when I'm on meth. Like, son, I hate admitting this kind of shit, but I was like, all right, I'm going to put a towel around my waist. I'll be naked underneath of it. And I'll just drop the towel and pretend like it was an accident. She'll probably drop to her knees and suck me off right there. That's what I'm thinking in my delusional meth mind, right? So she's like, hey, I'm putting towels on the toilet. I'm not looking. I was like, okay. So she puts the towels in there. She gets out, right? She kind of just puts her arm in there so she doesn't even see me. Now, I stand there for a little bit. I'm just staring at myself. All right, this is the game plan. Drop the towel. Maybe bend over, show her the butthole. I don't know. That might be coming on strong. I only do strong. I'm like just this creep meth dude in the mirror. So I walk out of the bathroom and I have the towel, tied around, around my waist. She's downstairs. This is a 2-story place. And I walk down the stairs and I'm just shirtless, the towel around my waist. And she's in the kitchen, like chopping up something, or I don't even know what she's doing. She's doing something like on the kitchen counter. And I was like, hey, da, da, da. And then I just literally pull my towel. Like, I'd like planned that I just like wiggle out of it and it would fall to the floor. That's what I thought in my mind, but in reality, I just like went and pulled it off. I was like, oh, I'm standing there butt naked. Dick's like that big. I'm like, oh my God, it fell. This is so embarrassing. Like, bend over so she can see the butthole. And she's like, Ryan, I saw you pull at the towel. You did that on, come on, she turns away. And I was like, no, you don't have to, you don't gotta do that. Let's just pretend we're not brother and sister. YOLO. She's like, what the fuck? What is wrong with you? Dude, you're being a weirdo. Get dressed. Here, I'm going outside. Go hit my vape. So she goes outside. I'm like super embarrassed. I'm like, that didn't go as the way that it was in my mind. I'm just gonna ask her if she'll fuck me. Yeah. So I get clothes on. I end up walking outside. And I go up to her, and like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna ask. I'm gonna be like, hey, I've been looking at your legs all day. I'm thinking maybe we should bone or something. But when I go to say it, I just get completely stuck. Like, I'm in some straight up meth psychosis at this point, and I'm just like, did you see my dick? And she's like, yeah. She's like, this is weird. You're being weird. Like, what are you on? Are you on something? I was like, it always comes, it always, I start like malfunctioning. I'm like, tits. Huh? And I was like, yeah, where am I sleeping? In your bed, right? And she's like, no, you're sleeping on the couch downstairs. Do you want me to make it up for you? And I was like, oh. So she goes and she gets blankets. She sets me up downstairs, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go to sleep. She's like, you look exhausted. My eyes were like the size of like owl eyes. And she had this like one of those couches that turned into a bed. Like you unfold it and, little folded mattress thing comes out of it. So I'm laying there. Of course, I'm playing with myself and shit. And I'm not sleeping. I'm just staring at the ceiling, and I'm embarrassed too. Like, especially when you're on meth, you start having this like very looped, like these weird looping thoughts that just play over and over and over again, like a broken record. And I remember, I don't know how much time's passed, but I'm laying in bed and I'm just kind of like staring at the ceiling and I hear footsteps. Like I hear, it's only me and her in this place, this pretty big 2-bedroom, 2-story house that she has. Pretty big for her, like being single and living alone. And I hear these footsteps. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe she had a change of heart. Maybe she does want to fuck after all. And I look up. She's naked, walking down the stairs. And I see the dead fish fucking face again. I'm like, oh, it was like haunted me from like my youth. I just see this like dead fish face fucking floating down the stairs. She's naked. She's older now. Woman body. And she's like looking at me. She's like, is this what you want? And I was like, but I'm so high on meth. I'm like, yeah. And so she gets in this folded out bed with me and we're just laying there and I like take my shirt off and we're just laying there. We're both, I'm high as fuck on meth. She's sober. Maybe she's had like a few drinks or something, but she's pretty sober. And we're just like laying in bed and she puts her hand over my crotch. Touches my dick. I felt like I was getting a hand job from a vampire. There was like no life. It was just cold. I could like see her breath coming out of her mouth. And we're just laying in bed and she's sitting there holding it, stroking it. But it's like, you can tell she's over it and she's just doing it because like I've made her feel weird about it. She's like, do you like this? I was like, do you care if I give you a Jason mask to wear? I can't handle looking at the fish face. No, I didn't say that. But yeah, she said shit like that. Like, do you like this? We end up fooling around. And we have sex. Missionary. Corny ass shit. Her head's like drenched, like draped down the whole time. And then when we're done, we cuddle up. And I don't sleep. I'm just like up all night holding her. And I gotta be honest, like the sex was bunk, right? It's like, but like, even so, I felt so bad for her because I was so twacked out. I was like on some meth shit. I was like, hey, let's bleach your asshole with Crest white strips. Just for fun. And she's like, okay, I'll do anything. And I end up just holding her all night, thinking about shit. Now, this is a huge part of what's going to happen at Maddie's parents' house. Now, going to get that key, but remember Carmen. Very, very important part of the next 2 videos. And we will get into what happens, and we'll come back to the timeline of going to the T-Bowls, getting the key, going to try to break into Maddie's house, and what Carmen has to do with it, and then how all of this is connected to the main storyline of Henry. I don't know how I did another night of me being depressed. It's like the sun came up. I was not planning on staying up this late. I don't have a lot of energy left in me, but I am making an effort, and I do appreciate you guys. See you soon. Palabra.